G'day Jafffa Adventures, Terry King here. Welcome to the channel. For those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I've been running the Rhinohides for my paint protection, and I absolutely rate these. They're a hard panel and they prevent all the scrapes that you get in bush bashing, but they're also rigid enough that they can take a little bit of a knock as well and prevent any damage to the panel beneath it. The disadvantage with these panels are twofold. They're held on with these small magnets, and over time, if dirt gets between the magnet and your panel, it'll actually start to scuff the clear coat a little bit. Now, Rhinohide recommends that you pull these things off every single day and clean them. And if you're a seasoned bush basher like myself, you know that that's next to impossible to do. So one thing that I did with a reasonable amount of success to help avoid that is I put a little bit of sticky felt on the back of each of these. You still can get a little bit of dirt back in there, but it doesn't seem to mar the clear coat as much as just the straight magnets. The other problem with those panels is at speed, and I'm talking highway speeds, 110 kilometers plus, when you get a gust of wind, like an oncoming road train for example, the wind can actually peel those panels off. And I've had that happen to me now on 2 occasions. The most recent on our trip to Tasmania. So given those limitations, I've decided to retire my Rhinohide panels, and I'm going to replace them with this. Yep, that's right, another set of Rhinohides. So you want confirmation that I'm whacked in the head? Stick around. And here is the difference, these little proprietary clips that hold them on. Let's break out the destructions and install these. All right, you've seen me wash the paint down. Obviously you need really clean and contamination-free paint to put the Rhinohide down. I'm going one step further. I'm going to actually buff my panels. You don't need to do that to install your Rhinohides, but I buff this paint every couple of years and it's due now, so I figured what the hell. This is the stuff I use. It's called Affixed and it's a one-step polish compound and it is absolutely brilliant, but as dear as poison. This little 300 or 400 ml bottle is about 60 or 70 bucks. You can use it pretty sparingly though. Have a look at that mirror finish you get when you're done using that compound. That is just stunning. All right, I'm going to take the buff to the rest of the car and I'll see you guys in about 6 hours. Well, I'm not going to lie, that was an absolute bitch of a job. In fact, it's the following day, but there's the results. That is bloody awesome. I basically buffed it with that Affixed and hit it with a ceramic coat, and that's what we've got. Don't know whether you can see there, that's clear wrap, and you might be able to see all the scuffs and the marks on that clear wrap. Clear wrap ends right there, and there's the paint that's been buffed. Now that paint didn't have those scrapes in it either, because that was behind the Rhinohide. So the buffing was more to take any imperfections out of the paint that you sort of collect over time. The Rhinohide doesn't cover these mirrors, so I put duct tape over the top of them. And you know what? They've really come up nicely. Very good. And of course the bonnet, which took me a whole ton of time to construct, has come up beautifully. All right, we got a good base for the Rhinohide to stick. Let's move on to that step. Okay, I got the cruiser in the shed. She's all buffed out and polished up. It looks $1,000,000. And these are the Rhinohide panels. When I purchased these, you could only get them in black ABS plastic. If you got a black car, no dramas. If you got a dark colored car like this, the 1G3, the graphite, yeah, it looks okay. But if you got a white car, it looks like dog's balls. And if you have a look on the Rhinohide website, they've actually got a white 200 series with these black panels on it, and it looks like shit. Even on this 1G3 though, in my eyes, it does look a little bit ordinary. So I'm going to take the time and I'm actually going to paint these panels. I got some leftover 1G3 from when I did this bonnet scoop, so I don't need to spend any money on the base paint. I will get some semi-gloss clear to spray over that as well, as opposed to gloss. Now you might be saying, hey Terry, what the hell? You're going to scratch those panels up anyway because you're going to be going through bushes and you get pinstripes on the panels. And that's absolutely right, and I don't really care about that. What I'm just trying to do is match those panels and blend them in with the color of the car as much as possible. Is it a little bit anal? Yeah, absolutely. But I've got the kit, I've got the time, I'm gonna do it. Now before I can get too far, I've made myself a little template just out of paper and a bit of tape to allow me to cut this snorkel section out of this Rhinohide panel that goes on this guard. The important lines that I've got is I've got it trimmed out around the guard here, I got it trimmed out around the light here, and I got it along the top of the guard. Now I'll take a pen here and I'll just go and I'll mark where the snorkel sits. Now I'll pull my template off. I was going to have my time over, I'd make it out of like a construction paper or something, not just plain white A4 paper. It's just a little bit too flimsy. Now because that line is a little bit wide of the snorkel, I can actually cut directly on it. And that should give me enough clearance when I transfer it to the Rhinohide panel. It'll be just about right. Okay, template's cut out. Now I'm just going to affix it to the panel with a little bit of tape. These are the lines that I reckon are the most important. The ones on the edges of the guards, any of the straight edges that can help me locate this thing. I got myself a cheap, shitty little rattle can of white paint. Just going along, marking my cut line. I could use a pen, but that's a bit of a ball ache. This works just fine, and all this piece here that's got the paint on it gets cut out anyway. If there's a little bit of overspray on the side I'm keeping, just get some thinners and clean it off. Okay, let's get rid of our template. There it is. There's my cut line. Okay, just got a pair of tin snips. Now it's time to cut into the panel, and this is a one-way trip. There's no coming back from this. Okay, that's all cut out as best as I could. To cut that panel, I just used a couple of tin snips. I got a left-handed and a right-handed tin snips to get around the two different angles that you've got to work with. I'm going to fit that up to the guard and make sure that hole's okay. And assuming it is, I'll go along the edge here with just a little bit of emery paper and take any of the sharp burrs off. Line up the back edge to the door, line up that inner guard edge, and what's she look like? It's bloody good. It's real good. There's the gap on the top of the snorkel. There's our gap along the back of the snorkel. It's difficult to see, but there's our gap on the underside. Sweet. Okay, emery paper time. Okay, got a bit of emery paper. Just gonna go around and clean up these edges. Get any of the sharp bits off from the cutters. Very nice. Now I'll just get myself a little bit of thinners. Just clean up those edges where there's a little bit of that white overspray left over. There's not very much of it at all. Now the last step in this whole process, before I can get to paint, is to go over every one of these panels with a Scotch-Brite pad and scuff them up. And the reason for that is to help the paint adhere. Scuffs up pretty easily actually, which is great. That means less effort for me. So you're watching this now and you're thinking, holy shit, Terry, that's a whole lot of effort for these Rhinohide panels. And you might even be thinking, that's a whole lot of effort for paint protection in general. And don't get me wrong, it is effort, there's no doubt about that. And I fully appreciate that some of yous don't have the ability to actually paint panels like this. You don't have the equipment, you don't have the space to do it, whatever it might be. So really, what are your options out there in terms of paint protection? I guess first and foremost, you can choose not to go bush bashing. You can choose not to go on trails that damage your paintwork or potentially damage your paintwork if a nice paint job is important to you. So there's nothing wrong with that. Let's assume that you do want to get out there. What options have you got? Well, number one's an easy one. That's nothing. Just get out there and bush bash and enjoy it and deal with the consequences or ignore the consequences. Your choice. Number two is some form of paint protection. So what are your options out there? We can go real simple and just put a nice bit of wax on your car and hope the hell that when the branches or sticks or whatever hit the paintwork, the wax allows them to slide off and provides some sort of a protective barrier, albeit very minor. between the paint and the scratchy bit. 3 are those giant magnetic sheets that you can get from some companies. I can't remember the names of them offhand. They're basically like a giant fridge magnet that fits over your entire panel. I have no experience with those, but having experience with magnets and panels, I'd suggest that there's a possibility of dirt getting behind those panels and marring the paint, and secondly, high speeds, once again, peeling those panels off. The magnets on these original Rhinohide panels were, I don't know, they called them some super strength magnet, molybdenum magnets or whatever, and they were strong as, like much stronger than your fridge magnets. And the panels still managed to come off. And ultimately, I think that's one of the reasons that Rhinohide changed to this clip system that they've got now. But those fridge magnet style paint protection is available, and it is out there, and it is an option. Your next option is paint protection film. And I broadly group that into 2 categories. One, the real cheap shit that you can get off of eBay and places like that, which I've used in the past as temporary paint protection. Buy it, cost you a couple $100, fit it to your car, go out on your trip and do your bush bash, come back in, peel it off, and Bob's your uncle. That stuff works quite well at protecting the paint, no doubt about it. The disadvantage I see with that stuff is twofold. One, it doesn't protect from really heavy impacts, like a big stick or something like that can cut through the film. And secondly, it's a lot of work. You got to apply it, and then you got to peel it off when you get back from your trip. I guess you could leave it on, but it does look a bit daggy. It is, the quality of the film itself is pretty ordinary, as the price would suggest. The other clear film option that you've got is that really expensive stuff. Again, I can't remember the name of it, but it is basically a self-annealing clear coat. I think it probably costs about 6 or 7 grand to do your entire car in a clear coat, in a clear wrap, and basically you can go out, do your bush bashing, park your car in the sun, and the sun kind of melts it or self-anneals it and self-heals it, and the scratches in the clear coat kind of melt away. That's a pretty good option. I've got some mates who have that, but it's dear. It's deer as poison. Like I said, around 6-7 grand to do a wagon-sized car. And then I guess that leaves Rhinohide as the last option that I know of anyway, apart from silly things like putting Raptor coat on your car or something like that. And obviously I've gone with the Rhinohides for a second time now because I see 2 really big advantages with it. One, it's removable. You can take it off whenever you want. And secondly, because it's this thick ABS plastic, you can really take a hard whack and it doesn't damage the paint. I hit a stick once, a big stick, you know, it probably would have been 75 mil in diameter. It flicked up and smacked into the door and actually dented the door. It's got a big crease in the door where the sticks hit. I had the Rhinohide panels on at the time. There is not a mark on the paint behind the panels. So I could get one of those paintless dent removal guys out. You could pop that out and the paint underneath is in perfect condition. And that's probably the 2 biggest advantages with the Rhinohide. Removable and high impact, really high impact. The big disadvantage that they had, these things blowing off at speed, they've addressed now with this new clip system. By the way, I'm not sponsored by these guys or anybody else for that matter. All right, time to wipe the entire panel down, all of them, with wax and grease remover. Get any of my fingerprints off of there. All right, I've got all my panels finished with wax and grease. They're all elevated on bits of tape so I can get along the edges that are laying closest to the tables. And I've got a pot of plastic primer here, so I'm going to spray plastic primer over all of these before we start painting. Okay, my plastic primer is down and cured. Now I'm going to hit it with the first coat of color. It's about 37 degrees out at the moment, and the biggest challenge I've got is not dripping sweat into the paint. It is crazy hot. Okay, I got my 2 coats of base coat down. Just waiting for that to flash off before I hit it with some satin clear coat. I pulled out one of my original Rhinohide panels, which is also painted. You can see the back side is black. That front side is 1G3. And just looking at that, I think that this is probably just base coat. I don't think they put any clear down on top of this. As I said, I'm going to throw down 2 coats of a satin clear on top of this, and then I'm going to go into the pool because I'm dying. Far out, it's hot. Okay, time for our clear coat. Wish me luck. Coat one done. I'll let that flash off for 20 minutes, hit it with a second. See when we're finished. All right, clear coat, all done. I'll let that dry completely before touching these. 2 screw ups, one right there and there. Guess what? Sweat dripped out of the glove. And one right there. Guess what? Sweat dripped out of my brow. Whew, time to hit the pool. All right, now I'm just going back and I'm putting all of these little clips back where they belong. Pretty simple, just involves popping them in the hole, pressing the sticky tape down, and then putting the back on them. Just like that. Now I got about 100 to do. Catch you later. Alrighty, I've just done a final wash on the vehicle and a final detail. So we are now ready to mount those Rhinohide panels onto some very, very clean door skins and quarter panels. What a great looking rig, however, eh? Just drink it in. Oh, and check this out. You might not have noticed. Have a look at those headlights. Check out my 200 series maintenance playlist to see the install and the feedback on those headlights. All right, let's go. Less perving, more working. Okay, I'm going to install these Rhinohide panels now. The paint is completely cured and they are ready to be put into place. Now, I'm not going to go full beast mode in installation instructions because Rhinohide actually do a pretty decent video on how to install these things. But I will give you a couple of pointers that I have encountered in putting these on myself. And I'll reinforce a couple of the points that Rhinohide make. Obviously, you got to start with a clean panel. So that panel's been washed. But I've ceramic coated the car and these tabs do not stick very well to probably a waxed surface and certainly a ceramic coated surface. So you got to get rid of that wax or that grease so these little tabby things will stick. Now Rhinohide, I think, say to use isopropyl alcohol to clean it off, which obviously works perfectly fine. I'm using wax and grease remover, also works perfectly fine. So just rub that over your panel where those little dots are gonna stick and then dry it off with a clean rag. So in this particular panel, there's 5 little dots across the top and there's 3 across the bottom. All right, that is ready for a panel stickage. So one thing that you have to be super critical of is the alignment of these panels when you put them on the car. And a couple of areas that you need to be super critical of are the door gap area, because what you don't want is for these panels to overlap and catch on one another, for example. The other critical area that I've got here is the emu wing. I gotta make sure that when that emu wing is open, that it's clearing past this Rhinohide. And what I've found with these Rhinohides as well is this ABS plastic has got a massive thermal expansion rate. So when these suckers get hot, they actually grow, and they grow at a pretty significant rate. You know, we're talking probably a millimeter or 2. And when the sun is beating on them, sometimes the panels grow and they actually do overlap a little bit. So that's why it's so critical to make sure you got a good gap there. All right, I'm pretty happy with where that's sitting. Now I'm gonna take my very first dot and peel my tape off. It's just got this little 3M backing tape on it. Gonna line that panel up again and make sure it's exactly where I want it. Now I'm gonna stick that dot down. And Rhinohide say to hold it there for 30 seconds with pressure. And that, I guess, activates the glue. So who am I to argue about that? I'll do exactly what they said. All right, there's our 30 seconds. Then we move to the next tab. Same thing, you kind of get in behind there and peel that backing tape off. Then you've got to realign your panel. And once you're happy with the alignment of that panel, you stick her down. And this second tab is probably the most critical one, because once you get 2 tabs down, you lose all the flexibility or all the movement in your panel. That's it, there's number 2 going down. And that's basically it. You just go along 1 dot at a time, stick them down, wait your 30 seconds, and move on to the next one. Okay, that panel is now fully affixed in place. Now what Rhinohide tell you to do is pull the panel off, let these little dots cure for 24 hours, and then you can whack your panel back on and it's all good to go. I'm gonna leave all of the panels on until I get them all affixed, because the clearance between each individual panel is critically important. And if I pull this one off, obviously I won't be able to locate it with respect to the next panel along. So I'll Rhinohide the entire car. Once that's finished, then I'll pull the panels off, let these things cure for 24 hours. This was the panel that I had that big bloody drop of sweat drip into it. And you know what? It actually didn't come up too bad. You can't really notice it all that well. Like I said, it doesn't matter in the end because these things are going to get all scraped to hell when I start bush bashing, but it's come up pretty good, I reckon. I'm over on the right-hand side of the car, or the driver's side in Australia. Got 2 panels down on this side at the moment, and there's a couple of things that I found reasonably noteworthy on this side. My commentary is, of course, specific to the 200 series because that's what I've got. This fuel door cover will not fit without trimming. How much trimming? I had 2 goes at it. First go I took about 1 mil off, and the second go I took another 1 millimeter off. And what happens if you don't trim it is, when you pop your fuel door, it fouls right here along this front edge. And you cannot get this back far enough so that that doesn't foul along that front edge. Even mine now with the trimming fouls a little bit, and I've just got to push this corner in, and that'll allow me to open and access the fuel door. The other thing I've had to do is put that panel back as far as possible. So the gap looks reasonably uneven from the front of the car to the back of the car. But there's no way around that without that fuel door fouling that front edge. And if that happens, you can only get that fuel door open about 1 inch or so. So that's one thing to note. The other thing to note is it does sit a little bit proud, and I suspect over time what's going to happen is I'm going to get a stick jammed in there, and that's going to rip this panel off. That's my forecast. This branding is a little rubber patch that's glued down to the Rhinohide, and it's lifting a little bit on this front edge. So again, I wouldn't be too surprised if a stick gets wedged in there and starts peeling that off. Another thing to note is you gotta make sure your panels are set back a little bit from your door gap. The reason for that, when you open your door, that door actually folds in behind the door in front of it. And your front door will fold in behind the guard in front of it. Now Rhinohide have made a little step down on these panels to allow for that, but that's not enough. You've got to actually shift it back about 2 or 3 millimeters from that door gap so that you get proper clearance. So that's just another thing that I've noted in dealing with the 200 series cruisers. I'm not sure whether other vehicles have the same issues. So I've discovered another issue in putting this front panel on. This panel here is never coming off. Now, I say that a little bit in jest, but what do I actually mean by that? There are 3 of these clip lock things that sit behind the bull bar. There's one here, there's one here in midship, and this one down here at the very bottom of the guard. That's the tool Mr. Rhinohide gives you to put these things on. And if I want to take this panel off, on those 3 clip locks, I can't access it with that tool. Can't get it in from the top, and I can't get it from the bottom because this scrub rail's in the road. But something like that with a long shank length, that is not going to do it. Let me check my tool board and see if I've got a potential solution for that. Well, holy shit, look what I found on my tool board. It's that freaking rusty because it just hasn't been used in yonks, if ever. I grab that one, which looks pretty close to the size I need. Will it fit there? Yes, it will. And can I get a spanner on here and turn that? Yes, I can. All right, that works in number 1. Yes, that'll fit there in number 2. And yes, that'll also fit there in number 3. Well, there we go, folks. I found myself a solution. So if you're running into the same issue, there are kits out there on the market that have those little bits that'll allow you to do it. That was more ass than class. While I'm laying down this next panel, I thought I'd take a couple of minutes for a message to the CEO at Rhinohide or any other decision maker within the organization. Because I've got a couple of suggestions that you may or may not want to take on board. And this is my opinion as a small business owner, just like I suspect the Rhinohide guys are. In my experience, a successful business starts with a product or a service that people want, and it grows by creating value in the eyes of your customers or your clients. It does not grow by tricking your customers. And on those 2 points, tricking your customers and providing ongoing value, I can give you a little bit of feedback from my experience. I got a couple of examples that left me uncomfortable and left me feeling that I had been tricked. Again, this is only my opinion, but I walked away from the transaction with that feeling. The first one is some marketing on your website that left me a little bit uncomfortable. And I've actually got the website here on my phone, and I'll pull it up and give you a specific example. It says somewhere on your website, the proprietary Armourlock panel mounting system provides additional shock absorption and ensures a small air gap is maintained between the car panel and the Rhinohide. And here it is, to allow moisture to escape, yep, copy that, and your paintwork to breathe. I mean, really? Does my paintwork need to breathe? This car is 12 years old. This paint's done all the breathing that it's going to do. Now, I think where that's coming from is you guys are having a shot at the people that do the clear film wrap and insinuating that the paint needs to breathe. I call BS on that on two fronts. One, the paint does not need to breathe, and two, those clear wraps are permeable to moisture and air as well. So the panel does actually breathe if indeed it needs to. And if it's important for the panel to breathe, how's my paint gonna breathe behind these little 3M sticker dots that are marked all over my car? So yeah, I don't buy that, guys, sorry. That feels like you're trying to pull a fast one on me. Now, I do understand that comments like that are covered under Section 3 in your terms and service, but it doesn't change the fact that I left that interaction a little bit uneasy. I'll give you guys a second example. I know you do a lot of promotional activity, and I saw your Black Friday sale and was quite attracted to that because you advertised 50% off. So basically what you did is you registered your email prior to Black Friday, you were sent a discount code, and you use that discount code on Black Friday to access that 50% discount, which I thought was pretty bloody good. So that's exactly what I did. I got my discount code, I waited for Black Friday, I got onto your website within 5 or 10 minutes of your business opening in Perth, and when I put my code in, it said something along the lines of, the allocation for that particular code has been exhausted. So that basically meant I didn't get my 50% discount. And I must admit, I walked away from that transaction very suspicious. I was like, holy cow, I got my discount code. I was on your website within 5 or 10 minutes of you opening the doors, and the allocation had been used up on that discount code. So the questions in my mind were, was there any panels that were available under that discount code? I don't know, and I'll never know. If there were panels available under that discount code, how many? 1 set? 2 sets? Again, I'll never have an answer to that question, but I did walk away from that transaction very suspiciously. So those are a couple of examples of where I felt tricked or duped a little bit. Let's talk about the value proposition side of things. Let me make it clear from the outset, I think this product is fantastic. If I thought it was crap, I wouldn't have paid full price and bought 2 sets. One, the old magnet set, and of course these with the new clips. So I have put my money where my mouth is. But let's talk about that value proposition. When I bought my old magnetic panels, they were color-coded to the car. I can't remember what colors were available. It was probably pretty basic. It was probably the 1G3, graphite, probably black, and maybe white. But the point I'm making was, it was available in color coding to your vehicle. These panels are only available in black. So what's going on there? Why did you guys drop that? I feel that the product, in my eyes and the consumer's eyes, is less valuable now than it was before. Now, being a small business owner, I could probably understand what was driving that decision, and it's all about costs. But as a consumer, your value proposition is decreased in my eyes. And heck, even if it was a cost issue, I would still offer the panels in a painted version at an elevated price to cover your costs of that painting. I'll tell you, I would have paid $200 or $300 extra to get color-coded panels. I wouldn't have been sweating my ring off getting heat stroke at 37 degrees trying to paint these suckers in a Queensland summertime. Another decrease in the value proposition, for me anyway, is that right there, that Rhinohide brand sticking out like the proverbial. Now, I appreciate your magnetic panels had Rhinohide branding on them. I think your front guards were Rhinohide branded, and I think maybe the rear doors, but it was very much less obvious. It was kind of pressed into the panel itself. That orange there sticks out like the proverbial. And as I said, I don't like being an advertising bitch for anybody. So I've shared with you a few things that I've been uncomfortable about, but I can also share with you some of the things that I would improve. First of all, ditch that marketing BS. You guys have got a great product. Get out there in the bush, flog the product to death, get video of it, and share those videos out in the digi-social space. I'm pretty well across the four-wheel driving scene here in Australia. I haven't seen a whole lot of that stuff from you. I think I've seen Ronnie Dahl do a little bit of a piece on the panels, but I haven't actually seen you guys out there in your cars bush bashing and putting this stuff through its paces. Get out there, bash away, back your product, and shout it from the rooftops. I'd increase the transparency of your promotional activity, your discounts, your sales, that sort of stuff. I know you guys play pretty heavy in that space, and there's nothing wrong with that, but when a customer engages with you and walks away with a feeling of being duped, then something is clearly wrong in that promotional activity space. Given the fact that you got this new Armourlock system and you've ditched the magnetic panels, there was obviously an issue with those, and I suspect they were either coming off at high speed or people were complaining about their panels getting marred. So there's a lot of people like me out there with magnetic panels. Offer a trade-in discount for these Armourlock panels if you've got a set of magnetic panels. I'm sure you guys could get those magnets off the back of those panels, drill out new holes for your Armourlocks, and recycle those. You might even be able to sell them as secondhand. Now you might be going, oh shit, hang on, that's going to eat into our new product sales. Well, really is it? Because the people that trade in are going to go to the new Armourlock, and those secondhand panels, they might open up another market for the price-conscious individuals. Another thing I do is provide a couple of basic color choices again. I'm very fortunate because I had some leftover 1G3 paint, and I've got the capability of painting these panels. There's a lot of people out there that aren't. If I owned a white cruiser, for example, there is no way that I would be purchasing a set of Rhinohide panels if I could only get them in black. It just looks crap on the vehicle, it really does. So there's a market there that you may be losing because you've decided to drop that value add. And these panels that fit onto the 200 in particular, redesign that fuel door. Bottom line is, you guys got a great product, support it with fun and transparent marketing, and start providing some real value add for your customers. You've got to continually strive to improve that value proposition. I'll say it again, you got a great product. I'd like to see you guys around for years to come. And one last thing, if you do see this, don't respond and try and defend your position on any of those points. That's just going to send me a clear message that you don't listen and that there might be a little bit of arrogance there. Alrighty, the install is finished, and that is what it looks like. I'm standing over on the sunny side of the truck. I'll go over on the shady side in a second. It's going to be a little bit different because of the satin finish versus the gloss. But that looks bloody good. I actually like that. I like that a lot. I thought the Armourlocks might stick out a little bit more than they are in terms of visibility, but nah, they're not bad. Not bad at all. Walking over to the shady side of the car, just gives a little bit of a different vantage, I guess. No, that's not bad. Not bad at all. All right, I'm going to pull this armor off now. Let those little dots cure for 24 hours. And before I close this video out, I'll give you a little bit of a look at what the car looks like with the armor dots on the paintwork. And here's what the vehicle looks like without the Rhinohides on. And those are the Rhinolocks that are stuck to the panels. Now, I'm probably one of the perfect customers for Rhinohide because I only use this vehicle for off-road work, and I'll leave the Rhinohide panels on permanently on the car. So I never have to look at this bloody echidna or porcupine look that we've got here in front of us. But if you want to pull your panels off regularly, this is what the car is going to look like. And you need to make a call whether that's acceptable or not. This is over on the shady side of the car. Same thing. Half an Armourlock stuck on each of the panels. So there you go. You should be in a position to be able to make a very informed decision about whether these panels are right for you. They are for me, despite some of the shortcomings that I've already talked about. We got some pretty epic four-wheel drive trips planned this year. I hope you guys can join us. Until next time, keep the shiny side up. Bye now.